The last scream. In a quiet place, the world has been taken over by alien creatures that hunt anything that makes a sound. It doesn't matter if it's a scream, a footstep, or just an object falling to the floor. Make a noise, you're dead. In the middle of all this chaos, the Abbott family tries to survive by living in complete silence on a farm. And in the center of it all is Lee Abbott, a father trying to keep his children alive while carrying the guilt of losing his youngest son. But besides the monster threat, there's another problem inside the family. The relationship between Lee and his daughter Reagan became broken after the tragedy. Because she's deaf, Reagan believes her father blames her for what happened, and that makes everything even heavier. In the climax, Reagan and Marcus get trapped inside a truck while one of the creatures tries to break in. Lee is already injured, and he realizes that to save his children, he needs to distract the creature, so he looks at Reagan and signs, "I have always loved you," and then he screams. In a movie where silence is the only survival rule, that moment basically becomes a death sentence. But it gives his children enough time to escape. The zombie father. In Train to Busan, we follow Seok Woo, an absent father completely focused on work and emotionally distant from his daughter Suwon. But everything changes once they board a train to Busan right as a zombie outbreak begins. And the infected here aren't slow. They run in terrifying ways, turning every train car into complete chaos. During the journey, Seok Woo slowly changes. He stops thinking only about himself and starts protecting other people, especially his daughter and the pregnant Seong Kyung. What's great is that the movie builds this evolution naturally without needing to explain everything through dialogue. In the climax, after confronting the selfish Yeon Suk in the locomotive while he's infected, Seok Woo gets bitten on the hand, and he instantly realizes there's no way out. So he takes his daughter and the pregnant woman to the conductor's cabin, teaches Suwon how to use the train brake, and says goodbye. Outside, as he slowly starts transforming, Seok Woo remembers the moment he held Suwon as a baby for the first time. And it's that happy memory that helps him accept his final decision. It's hard to find another zombie movie that manages to end in such a heartbreaking and beautiful way at the same time. The final push. There are plenty of zombie movie characters who act tough the entire time, but disappear the second real danger shows up. But in 28 weeks later, Doyle does the exact opposite. The movie takes place months after the Rage virus destroyed the UK in the first 28 days later. The military tries rebuilding London and convincing people everything is back to normal. Spoiler, it clearly isn't. Once the infection returns, the entire city turns into chaos within minutes. In the middle of all this is Doyle, a military sniper. And unlike many soldiers in the movie, Doyle begins realizing the military cares more about eliminating possible infected people than actually saving innocent civilians. After abandoning his position, he decides to help Scarlett and two children escape the city. But during the escape, their car dies right in the middle of an area covered in flammable gas released by the military itself. And that's when the situation turns into pure desperation. Unable to start the vehicle, Doyle gets out to push it, while soldiers carrying flamethrowers advance forward, burning everything in sight. The entire scene feels suffocating because you can see the fire getting closer and closer while he desperately tries to make the engine start. Even seeing the flames approaching, he gives the car one final push to save the group and gets consumed by the fire. The last friend. In I Am Legend, Robert Neville lives completely alone in a destroyed New York after a virus transformed almost all of humanity into violent creatures. His only real companion for years is Sam, his German shepherd. Their relationship becomes the emotional core of the movie. Sam isn't just a pet. She's his patrol partner, his protection, and the only emotional connection keeping Neville remotely sane in that empty world. The problem begins when Neville falls into a trap created by the infected. During the escape, Sam jumps in front of him to fight infected dogs and ends up getting bitten. Even injured, she still manages to save Neville before they escape. Desperate, Neville rushes Sam back to the lab and injects her with the experimental serum he's been testing for years while searching for a cure. And the scene becomes even heavier because he tries calming her down by singing Three Little Birds by Bob Marley, a song they used to listen to together. But the virus starts spreading quickly. Sam's eyes begin changing, she starts growling, and Neville realizes there's no possible cure anymore. Unable to accept what's happening, he hugs her one last time before ending her suffering. The scene hit people so hard that, according to screenwriter Akiva Goldsman, many viewers walked out of test screenings right after Sam's death. And to make everything even sadder, Will Smith became so attached to the dog from filming that he actually tried to adopt her in real life. The Torch. In The Monster, the story follows Kathy and her daughter Lizzie driving down an isolated road. And right from the beginning, it's obvious their relationship is broken. Kathy is an alcoholic, irresponsible, and clearly failed many times as a mother. Lizzie practically had to grow up way too early because of that. The atmosphere of the entire movie feels heavy because it's obvious there's years of unresolved pain between them. After their car crashes on the road, mother and daughter discover there's a creature hiding in the woods, attacking anyone who appears nearby. And director Brian Bertino does something smart here. The monster barely appears clearly at first. The suspense comes much more from the sounds and tension than from the creature itself. But during the escape, Kathy ends up badly injured. She she realizes she's not going to survive much longer. Then comes the sacrifice. Using an improvised torch, Kathy heads into the forest to lure the monster away while telling Lizzie to run. The creature attacks and kills her. The moment works because it doesn't feel like perfect heroism. It feels like a mother trying to fix years of mistakes in her final moments. The detonator. In Event Horizon, the crew of a rescue ship receives a simple mission: investigate the return of the Event Horizon, a spaceship that disappeared years earlier. The problem is, the ship came back completely wrong. Little by little, the crew discovers the Event Horizon created an artificial black hole for space travel, but ended up opening a gateway to something far worse. Basically, the ship went to hell and came back bringing hell with it. Leading the mission is Captain Miller, who spends the entire movie trying to keep the crew alive, while everyone starts getting tormented by horrifying visions. In the end, Miller realizes there's no way to destroy the threat and escape at the same time. So he comes up with one final plan: split the Event Horizon into two sections using explosives, turning the front half of the ship into a lifeboat for the survivors. But before reaching the detonator, he's confronted by Dr. Weir, now completely consumed by the ship's influence. The guy basically becomes a messenger of chaos, trying to convince Miller to give up. And then comes the best part. Even knowing he won't survive, Miller activates the explosives. Back half of the ship gets pulled into the black hole, while the survivors manage to escape. The sunrise. In 30 Days of Night, the town of Barrow, Alaska enters that time of year when the sun disappears for an entire month. And honestly, living there already sounds like a terrible idea even normally. But things get much worse when a group of vampires arrives during those 30 straight days of darkness. The town turns into a complete nightmare. With no communication, no electricity, and totally isolated, the residents begin getting hunted night after night while trying to survive in hiding. And in the middle of all this chaos is Eben Olsen, the town sheriff. For most of the movie, Eben tries protecting the survivors using improvised strategies, because fighting vampires head-on clearly doesn't work very well. But near the end, he realizes something important. There's no human way to defeat the vampire leader Marlowe. Then comes the movie's most desperate decision. Eben injects vampire blood into his own body, slowly transforming himself into one of the same creatures that destroyed the town. The transformation gives him enough strength to fight Marlowe in a brutal street battle while the sun finally starts rising. And the saddest detail is that Eben knows from the beginning there's no coming back from this. After defeating the vampire leader, he simply accepts his fate. Instead of running from the sunlight, Eben sits beside his wife Stella while the sunrise arrives. The bridge. In the classic Predator, Billy Soul is that kind of character who barely talks, but every time he appears on screen you feel like something is seriously wrong. While the rest of the group still tries acting like this is just a normal military mission, Billy realizes way before everyone else that they're being hunted by something terrifying, and that makes his sacrifice even more memorable. After the Predator starts killing the team one by one in the jungle, Dutch and the survivors try escaping by crossing a massive fallen tree trunk. But Billy suddenly stops in the middle of the improvised bridge and understands that someone needs to buy the others time. That's when one of the movie's most iconic scenes happens. Billy throws away his gun, removes part of his gear, and keeps only his machete. As if that wasn't intimidating enough, he even cuts his own chest in an almost ritualistic gesture, like he's officially challenging the Predator to a direct fight. And the genius part of the scene is that the movie never actually shows the battle. The camera stays with Dutch and the others escaping, while in the background, all you can hear is Billy's scream echoing through the jungle. The film leaves everything to the audience's imagination. The boiler. In Dr. Sleep, we follow Dan Torrance as an adult, decades after the traumatic events of The Shining. And it's safe to say the boy from the Overlook Hotel grew up completely destroyed by his trauma. Just like his father, Dan fell into alcoholism and spent years trying to escape the visions caused by the supernatural power he's had since childhood. But everything changes when he meets Abra Stone, a girl with psychic abilities even stronger than his. The two become targets of Rose the Hat and the True Knot, a cult that literally hunts children with powers in order to survive. In the end, Dan realizes he can't defeat Rose normally, so he decides to return to the Overlook Hotel. His plan is simple and suicidal at the same time. Use the hotel's own ghosts against Rose. The plan actually works. While Rose is attacked by the Overlook's supernatural entities, Dan runs to the old boiler room and pushes the system to its limit, preparing the entire hotel to explode. But the Overlook still tries controlling Dan the same way it controlled Jack Torrance years earlier. At one tense moment, he even becomes possessed and nearly attacks Abra, but he manages to resist long enough to tell her to run before the explosion. Dan dies together with the hotel while everything burns around him. And the most interesting part is that this ending doesn't exist in the original book. Director Mike Flanagan completely changed Dan's fate, specifically to give him the redemption his father never got in Stanley Kubrick's original movie, The Furnace. In Alien 3, Ellen Ripley believes she finally escaped the xenomorphs, but the Alien franchise never lets anyone rest for very long. After the ship crashes, she discovers that an alien also survived the accident and started hunting the prisoners inside that isolated facility. And the worst detail? Ripley realizes she herself is carrying an alien queen embryo inside her body, meaning she literally became the most valuable thing to the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, the company that spends the entire franchise trying to turn the creatures into biological weapons. From that point on, Ripley understands there's no happy ending possible, and if she gets captured, the company will use the creature for experiments and probably doom thousands of people. So she makes a brutal decision: die before that happens. In the movie's climax, while the survivors try destroying the prison alien, company agents arrive offering help and promising to safely remove the creature from her body. But Ripley knows corporate lies way too well by that point. In the final scene, she simply throws herself into the furnace. And the moment became iconic because in the theatrical version, the alien queen bursts out of her chest during the fall, while Ripley holds the creature in her arms to make sure they both die together. It's an extremely symbolic ending. Interestingly, many people hated this ending at the time because Ripley was basically the soul of the franchise. Even so, today many fans see Alien 3 as a bold ending for the character. The staircase. In the classic The Exorcist, everything revolves around Regan, a 12-year-old girl who starts showing increasingly terrifying behavior after playing with a Ouija board. What first seems like a psychological problem quickly turns into something much darker, leading Regan's mother to seek help from the church. That's when Father Karras enters the story, a priest and psychiatrist who spends most of the movie dealing with a massive crisis of faith. He's devastated by his mother's death and starts questioning whether he truly still believes in God, and that makes the character much more interesting. In the climax, during the exorcism ritual, the experienced Father Marin dies inside Regan's room. Karras completely loses control after realizing the demon Pazuzu is still inside the girl. Then comes the movie's most famous moment. Desperate, Karras grabs Regan and screams for the demon to possess him instead of the girl. And the worst part is, it works. Within seconds, his expression changes and it becomes clear Pazuzu entered his body. But Karras manages to resist for one brief moment. Before losing complete control, he throws himself out the bedroom window and falls down the massive staircase outside the house, dying shortly after the fall. His sacrifice saves Regan, and in the end, Karras reconnects with his faith before dying. The grenade! In Child's Play 3, Andy Barclay is older now and trying to move on with his life at a military school. The problem is that Chucky came back too. Yeah, he just never dies. For most of the movie, Harold Whitehurst appears as that typical insecure cadet, constantly pressured by the other students. He's shy, always nervous, and clearly not built for military life. But everything changes during the Academy's war games. The exercise was supposed to use paint ammunition, but Chucky switches the fake rounds with real bullets and turns the training into total chaos. While the cadets argue and try figuring out what's happening, Chucky throws a grenade right into the middle of the group where Andy and the others are trapped. And nobody realizes the danger in time. Nobody, except Whitehurst. Even though he's the most cowardly character there, he instantly understands there's no time to run or warn everyone. So he makes the only possible decision. He throws himself onto the grenade to protect the other cadets. The explosion kills Whitehurst instantly, but prevents the shrapnel from hitting the rest of the group. The moment ends up becoming the character's big redemption. And by the way, if you want to see every single one of Chucky's deaths throughout the franchise, we already made a really cool video about it. Click and watch, I'll see you there.